Too often we hold fast to the cliches of our forebears. We subject all facts to a prefabricated set of interpretations. We enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. Mythology distracts us everywhere, for the great enemy of the truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic.
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1917. We had 5 girls and 4 boys. I don't think you can have 9 children in the house without it being some rigid authority, and I think my father supplied that, but not unnecessarily so, and I think it did us all good. I think I've always was interested in history and have spent a lot of time on it, and even at that time was particularly interested in it. My father was then working for the government as chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission under President Roosevelt, and later as chairman of the Maritime Commission. And therefore there was a great atmosphere of government and politics in my house, but I never thought at that time of going into it.
In 1938, Joseph Kennedy takes up a third and most challenging post in the service of his country. At the White House on a day in February, he is sworn in by Supreme Court Justice Stanley Reed as American Ambassador to Great Britain. Later that same month, Ambassador Kennedy is on his way, bound for a restless, troubled, and apprehensive Europe.
During the time I was in college, I had taken a half year off and worked in the American Embassy in Paris in the winter and the spring of 1939. In June of 1939, I went to Poland and stayed 3 weeks there. And I took a train to Moscow and got some impression of the Soviet Union. I didn't have a high opinion of them before I went, and of the system, and much less after being there. There was massive inefficiency, and the life was grim and dour and windswept and dusty. It's a very depressing country. After Russia, I came home through Berlin. It was a great chance to go because it was certainly Europe on the eve, and everything was, the tempo was heightened because of it.
Und auf der Fruchtbarkeit deiner Familie die Nation erhält.
It's a great opportunity to see a period of history which is, one of the most significant.
At this time, we're indeed pleased to have with us in our studios Mr. John F. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy is the author of the recently published book, Why England Slept. Tell me, Mr. Kennedy, where did you go to school?
Well, I attended Harvard. I just finished there this June.
What is this book about, Mr. Kennedy?
Well, this book is an attempt to analyze the reasons for Britain's failure to rearm in the face of a rearming Germany.
600 German bombers and protecting fighters were used in 3.5 raids on England today.
I had spent a lot of time in boats, and therefore when the war looked as if the war was coming, I was interested in joining the Navy. My brother's in the Navy too. We, living near the sea, I think everyone who could headed in that direction. And I joined September 1941.
I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
Well, we were involved in the defense of first of the Solomon Islands generally, and the New Georgia, the Russell Islands, and the campaigns near Guadalcanal, in an attempt to prevent the Japanese from supplying their bases where they had units of troops in all those islands.
Well, our PT boat was sunk by a Japanese destroyer.
Well, we drifted around for a day or so, and then we moved from island to island, and then finally about 9 or 10 days later we ran into a native, and we gave him a coconut, and he took it back to our base, and they came finally and got us.
I realized the tragic significance of the atomic bomb. Having found the atomic bomb, we have used it. We shall continue to use it until we completely destroy Japan's power to make war.
7 p.m. Eastern Wartime. Bob Trout reporting. The Japanese have accepted our terms fully. That's the word we've just received from the White House in Washington. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the Second World War.
Well, after I came home and I was released from the Navy, I went to work for a newspaper, the Chicago Herald American, and then I came home to Boston.
I had an older brother who had been, who I thought would be a politician. Well, he was killed as a flyer in Europe.
That was Joseph Kennedy.
Well, I never wanted to be in politics until really almost the time I ran. I was always interested in writing. I wanted to teach for a while. So that really the war changed my life, and I suppose if it hadn't been for that, what happened then, I suppose I would have gone on with my original plans.
Who can fight and fight till he wins? Kennedy can. Kennedy can.
When I first went into Congress in 1946, I represented a district that was very poor in Massachusetts. We had many problems, housing, many families were in need of assistance. Therefore, my viewpoint on the necessity for social legislation came really pragmatically. It was just observation.
Our distinguished guest for this evening is the Honorable John F. Kennedy, United States Representative from Massachusetts.
Mr. Kennedy, I believe you visited the Middle East on your trip. Now, why is it that we Americans have so many enemies in the Middle East today?
Well, I think that there's two reasons. In the first place, all of these countries, stretching from French North Africa to the South China Sea, French Indochina, all of these countries have been or still are under the domination of Western powers, and so-called white powers. And there, therefore, is a heritage of animosity and hatred directed against the West, and as we are the strongest of the Western powers, we fall heir to a great deal of that. Secondly, these people live on a marginal level. Their standard of living is very low. Most of them are illiterate. They have this past history of Western exploitation. The communists, or at least the Russians, have not had a comparable colonial experience in this area. They move among the people and say, how could you be worse off than you now are? Come with us and you might be better off. It's compounded by the fact that in some of these countries they have native oligarchies who are corrupt and are not concerned about the welfare of the people. All these things compound in these difficult days make for a fertile field for communist infiltration and weakness for the West.
Our audience, of course, is particularly interested in your views because it's been mentioned that you are a possible or probable candidate for the United States Senate against Senator Lodge. Have you decided whether or not you're going to oppose Senator Lodge this year?
Mr. Huey, I plan to announce my plans about what I thought I might do about the end of April. At that time, I thought I'd make them definite, but I'm certainly considering it very strongly.
Well, I think that campaigns are a terrible grind. Some people say they enjoy them, but In addition to the routine that you have to undergo, there's the doubt always about whether you're going to be successful, and the combination really makes it a very difficult period.
Congressman Kennedy, how do you feel about your race for the Senate up here?
Well, I think it's going very well, and of course, have great expectations. I think the state's going Democratic, and I think that the ticket's going to be successful.
And if elected to the Senate of the United States this November, I will fight for the New England industry, which is so by a fight for the people of this state and for the future of our country.
Victory is here. After 20 years, the Republican Party is back in power. General Dwight D. Eisenhower is elected. His party has won control of Congress, with the Senate pretty evenly divided.
In Massachusetts Senate race, Representative John F. Kennedy scores one of the few major Democratic victories, decisively defeating in a tough battle the Republican incumbent Henry Cabot Lodge, Jr.
Well, I guess you're glad it's over, aren't you, Robin? I am, Jack. Okay.
I don't think that youth is any presumption of vitality, or old age any presumption of wisdom. It really, once again, it seems to me, depends on the confidence of the individual. We've had an extremely great number of talented younger men in the life of this country, from Jefferson and Hamilton and all the rest. And we've had a lot of very talented older men. I would really think, once again, it comes down to the quality of the individual.
Are you simply swamped by invitations from Washington hostesses? I mean, you're a single man and a senator. That must make you most eligible.
Well, you would think so, Holly, but it seems nothing seems to have happened. Life goes on about the same as always.
Well, I met her 3 years ago at a dinner in Washington. She used to be the inquiring photographer for the Times Herald at that time. Was it a case of love at first sight? Well, I don't know. But, I don't know how you describe that, but anyway, I was very interested.
The wedding of Senator John F. Kennedy recalls Newport's one-time social grandeur. Former Ambassador and Mrs. Joseph Kennedy, parents of the groom, are among the personalities on hand to make this the top society wedding of the year. For the spectators outside the church, it's a real storybook wedding. A radiant bride, the former Jacqueline Bouvier, and a handsome groom. With a pretty wife and a politically rising star, the future seems bright for the junior senator from Massachusetts.
We're going up to Boston to meet Senator John Kennedy and his bride. Did you have a chance to do much reading?
Yes, well, I used to very much, and I try to do it as much as I can now.
Have you found anything that has been particularly useful, or perhaps I could use the word inspirational to you?
Well, I do have something here. It was written by Alan Seagull, who, as you remember, was born in New York and fought in the Foreign Legion and was killed in the First World War in 1916.
Good.
He wrote that famous poem, I Have a Rendezvous with Death. And just before he died, he wrote a letter home to his mother, which I think has good advice for all of us. He said, "Whether I am on the winning or losing side is not the point with me. It is being on the side where my sympathies lie that matters. Success in life means doing that thing than which nothing else conceivable seems more noble or satisfying or remunerative, and then being ready to see it through to the end."
Senator, I know you recently underwent surgery for injuries received during World War II. Now, I was wondering if during your period of convalescence you had any dominant thoughts.
Well, I think that probably sitting in bed for some months, which I did, is a trial, I suppose, to anybody. I think that the only sort of solution and salvation is to become interested in a particular project, and I became interested in writing the stories of 8 United States senators who, at crucial periods in our country's history, took a decision against the wishes of their constituents, and in some cases gave up their careers for the national interest. And so I wrote that book during this period, and it was published this January.
Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen, from Chicago's International Amphitheater, the site of the 1956 National Democratic Nominating Convention.
Fellow delegates, I give you the man from Libertyville, the next Democratic nominee, and our next President of the United States, Admiral E. Stevenson.
How would you like to be Vice President with us?
Well, I'd be honored, of course, if chosen, but I've always had my doubts whether I ever be chosen. I ran for the Vice Presidency in 1956 at the Democratic Convention, and I was beaten by Estes Kefauver by 20 votes.
Pennsylvania wishes to cast its entire 74 votes for Estes Kefauver.
Someone has said that you really don't understand politics until you've been defeated, and then all the mysteries become apparent. After the Democrats lost in '56, I began to think that maybe I would run in 1960, and began to work weekends traveling around the United States, and finally decided in '58 that I would run. I was on the Rackets Committee for 3 years in the Senate. I think we made it uncomfortable for a good many racketeers. We made it uncomfortable for Jimmy Hoffa and some of the others.
Spending as much time as necessary to acquaint the American people with the fact that this is a strike-breaking, union-busting bill. In my opinion,
Mr. Harper, this bill is not a strike-breaking, union-busting bill. You're the best argument I know for it. Your testimony here this afternoon, your complete indifference to the fact that numerous people who hold responsible positions in your union come before this committee and take the Fifth Amendment because an honest answer might tend to incriminate them. Your complete indifference to it, I think, makes this bill essential.
Perhaps no man is rising faster on the nation's political scene than Senator John F. Kennedy of Massachusetts.
I am today announcing my candidacy for the presidency of the United States.
The Kennedy Campaign Organization has named its battleground for the presidential nomination, the primary. A substantial victory for Kennedy in Wisconsin, and the experts say his bandwagon is on its way.
And I can assure you that if I'm successful here, I shall go to Los Angeles in hopes of being nominated. And if I am nominated, I shall go to the American people. I shall go to them discussing the great and serious business that faces the American people in this difficult period.
Pandemonium is literally raining right now at Los Angeles Airport because Senator John Kennedy has just arrived here, said hello to about 5,000 supporters who turned out to greet him.
The man who can lead us to meet that responsibility, to lead us to a fruitful America, to a peaceful world for mankind everywhere, is the great senator from the state of Massachusetts, John F. Kennedy.
Mr. Chairman, Wyoming's vote will make majority for Senator Kennedy.
I declare John F. Kennedy Democratic nominee for President of the United States by the acclamation of this great convention.
This is an important election. In many ways, the most important election in the history of this country. All of us in this room and across the country are united together in our devotion to this country. We wish to keep it strong and we wish to keep it free. It requires, at this critical time, the best of all of us. And I can assure all of you here who have reposed this confidence in me that I will be worthy of your trust. We will carry the fight to the people in the fall.